everybody? Welcome to Capital Combat. The name says it all. I'm Hakeem Branch, and today I'm going to recap last night's UFC Fight Night in Vegas, number 11, which for the main event was Colby Chaos Covington versus Tyron, the Chosen One, Woodley in a 5-round main event. We also had Nico Price versus Donald Cowboy Cerrone, and we had a bunch of other good fights on the card. If you watched the preview video, I mainly only talked about the main event, and we're going to do the same thing here. I'm going to touch on the undercard fights because there were some good matchups down there and some really good entertaining fights, but I'm going to spend most of the time talking about the main event because that one pretty much had the most implications outside of the fight below the co-main. And so I'm going to start off with the first fight that I talked about, which was Mackenzie Dern and Randa Marcos. In that fight, I was thinking that Randa's little bit better stand-up would lead to her winning some rounds. Totally off. Mackenzie Dern was able to get her down to the ground, get an arm bar, and do it very quickly. I did talk about her having world-class jiu-jitsu, being a several-time world champion in jiu-jitsu, but I just didn't think that she was going to get it done that quickly. So, very good for her. Not really sure where she's going to go from here. So that's a good thing to see is what happens with her next. She is being pushed. She is a star in that women's division. So I would assume that she gets some bigger names now that she's, back on that winning track. Pretty much the event of the night was the 17-second knockout from I keep almost saying Hazmat, but it's Hamzat. Anyway, 17 seconds. Usually, what we see this guy do is he puts guys on the ground, pummels them into submission. But this time, it took 17 seconds and one right hand. The reason why this is so impressive is because when you're dealing with the upper echelon of fighters, guys who are training day in and day out, and make it into televised events and the biggest mixed martial arts promotion in the world in the UFC, you know how to take a punch. And for you to be knocked out in one punch is highly impressive, especially early on when you're fresh, when you're looking for things. To be knocked out by the very first punch, and it wasn't like he got hit and hurt and he got jumped on. He was hit and he was out. That is extremely rare and highly impressive. Next up for him is Damian Maia, who is one of the best grapplers in mixed martial arts. Jiu-jitsu grapplers versus a very good up-and-coming wrestler with, now we see, stellar knockout power. So that's going to be a really good fight whenever they actually, get that fully cemented and ready to go. I'm going to be paying attention to that one and also practicing how to say that man's name because we got to put some respect on it. So going into the co-main event, Nico Price, I was picking him to win. I thought that, he was younger. He's, bigger guy. He looked much bigger fight night. Cowboy being kind of on the slide. He's a little up there in age. He's had a plethora of fights. So the cards weren't looking much in his favor. And then early on in the fight, didn't look like it. Everything that Price was landing looked like it was bothering Cerrone. And then he used that veteran guile to gut it out. Then there were a few eye pokes that kind of, led to some stoppages and some breaks. But what I really liked was the employment of an up jab from PriceCerrone that really kept Price honest through most of the fight. However, it wasn't enough to convince the judges, and the fight ended up being a draw because two of the judges took the point that Price lost in the first round and gave him 2 other rounds on top of that. So it would have been, it ended up being a draw. Who knows what's going to happen? It was really weird to see Price celebrating in the octagon after they announced it like he won. And even Cowboy looked like, oh, what is this guy doing? But I did see a clip later on of him talking to Cowboy, talking about how much he wants to be like him and how much he influenced him, which is really cool to see. Two grown guys and one guy giving him his props and his respect. And you don't really see, well, actually you do see it a lot, but when I start talking about the main event, you'll kind of see why I kind of went that way, because then you got somebody who is kind of trying, throwing all that out the window. And let's get into that main event. Covington-Woodley. If you watched the preview video, pretty much every video I watched, everyone was going for a convincing victory for Colby Covington. And technically we got that. Covington was never in really any trouble. He won all of the rounds, and it looked pretty much like what we thought it was going to look like. Tyron Woodley looking for that window for the one shot. Shot's not coming, so he is just sitting in there looking at Colby Covington. And to his credit, his defense was really good. Covington was not able to land really consistently on Woodley because of the head movement, because of probably that threat for that right hand that was coming. But Covington was able to push him to the cage repeatedly. He would get all shots. And like I said, Woodley was making him miss. However, there's nothing coming back for Covington to even consider doing something different than what he was doing. So you see Covington just continuing, pressuring against the cage, getting little small shots here and there. The thing that I really liked was the elbow off the break. Almost every single time Tyron ended up getting the separation, Colby would just elbow him. One elbow to the head. And that was probably his best shot of the entire fight. So then we get into the 5th round. He gets some good takedowns in a couple of the rounds. He did a power double leg, I think, in the first round. He did pick him up and put him down a couple times. So, but, once he got down there was not much going on. But Tyron Woodley's doing absolutely nothing. So Colby's just piling up the points at this point. And it's looking like a dominant performance. So then we get to round 5. More of the same. Tyron, which he did several times in the fight, starts threatening a guillotine. And he is looking like he may get it. And then as he's trying to tighten it up and Colby is trying to change positions, he just starts screaming in pain. And the ref has to stop the fight, because once you do that that audible sound of pain, they automatically stop the fight. The weird thing was that Colby started celebrating he did it. Now, being in the heat of the moment, maybe he thought he did. We have the advantage of looking at the cameras and seeing different angles. Him being in there, maybe he thought it was something he did. So I was looking at it like, what are you doing? Like he was doing something to you, hurt himself, and now the fight's over, and you're celebrating like you did this tremendous accomplishment. You know, whatever. Let him have his day. He just won an impressive fight, and you know, some of that comes from the terrible gimmick that he has. But you got to give him the props for, you know, dominating their opponent. And on the record books, it says he stops Tyron Woodley. So he's got a stoppage over Tyron Woodley. That's something that Gilbert Burns, Kamaru Usman, there's a lot of people who don't have that on their resume. There's really only a couple people that have actually like stopped him. So that is something that he can brag about. The fight did stop before the final bell, and he was made the winner. That's how it shakes out sometimes. What's next for him? Since Burns and Usman are going to fight for the belt, if he doesn't wait for the winner of that, then he can face Leon Edwards, who's number 3. This guy hasn't fought in over a year. He's been sitting there waiting. He's on an 8-fight win streak. Somebody throw this guy a bone. I mean, like everyone's mentioning all these other names but him, and he's just sitting there not able to fight. And it's kind of messed up, but that's how the fight game shakes out sometimes. So he can do Leon Edwards, or he can wait for the title shot. He said he wanted Masvidal, who is number 4 in the rankings. That's, like I said, everyone's calling out everyone but Leon Edwards. But that is a high-profile fight that comes with hype that people can get behind. But in my opinion, I would say that he should wait on that title shot. You know, he was the number 2 guy. The fight before Woodley, he fought Kamaru Usman, and even though he lost and he was stopped, it was a competitive fight. So I think we can see that again, see what adjustments each guy makes, and let's run that back. So let me know what you guys think. Hit me up in the comment section below with your thoughts on the fights. What do you think should happen next? How do you feel about what happened? Just let me know. Hit us up on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter at Capital of Combat. Check out later on this week, I'm going to do the preview for Israel Adesanya versus Paulo Costa, which should be a barn burner. And Rob is probably going to do the recap of the Showtime fight that happened last night between Erickson Lubin and Terrell Gausha. So you got a lot to see. So hit the subscribe button, hit the bell icon so you can get the updates, and we'll see you all in the next video. Till then, fight on.
This is round 1 and you've already lost. They don't seem to see that everything we've done is coming and cost. My fists are on fire, I perform till I perspire. My demons are in a rage, keep thinking that it's a game. I kick rhyme hurricane, I told them I don't play, I'm liquid.
Black Street Fighter.